everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be telling you guys how I got 100% in my EPQ, which is an extended project qualification, and I did the AQA exam board. Honestly, all of them are pretty similar, so I'll be giving some more like general advice, but do make sure to double check your exam board guidelines specifically as well. Also make sure to subscribe to my channel, and let's get started with the video. For context, an EPQ is basically a research project where you can either write a 5,000 word essay or you can make an artifact with a minimum of 1,000 word count, I'm pretty sure. And I personally did the 5,000 word essay, which is what this video will focus on, and I'll speak about my experiences and also giving you guys tips which are quite general but applicable to all types of EPQs, so not just the 5,000 word essay. So firstly, what are the benefits of doing an EPQ? So an EPQ counts as half an A level, so in terms of UCAS points you would get some UCAS points depending on whatever grade you get. It would be half of the UCAS points you would get for an A level grade. Also, lots and lots of unis reduce their offer if you get a high grade in EPQ. So EPQ does matter in terms of admissions, so you can definitely get some benefits out of that. Plus, I think with uni it helps so much with essay writing, and I learned how to like cite and reference, and I got taught things like what a literature review is, what a bibliography is in EPQ, so I thought that was very useful. So I ended up getting 50 out of 50, which is an A star, and I'm honestly so grateful, and I still can't believe it, honestly. This might sound crazy, but at one point I literally wanted to drop out of EPQ so badly. I disliked it a lot at first because it took up so much of my time, and fun fact, I even drafted an email to my head of year to ask to drop EPQ, but I never ended up sending that email, and I ended up coming to love my topic and EPQ in general, and it ended up all working out. So a bit of a backstory and what my EPQ was about. So my question was, to what extent has COVID-19 impacted patient care in emergency medicine? However, this wasn't always my question. In fact, my title for the longest time when I did EPQ was the impact of COVID-19 on NHS dentistry, because when I was selecting my question, it sounded quite interesting to me at the time. However, I ended up leaning more on the medicine side of things in terms of my interest slide, and that's what I ended up applying for in terms of uni as well. So I ended up liking my title less and less. So a bonus tip before we jump into the actual tips is to pick a topic that you like, because this is a topic that you're going to be researching and spending loads and loads of time on writing and thinking about it. So if you can change the title and you really don't enjoy it, then be like me and do change it, but be careful, because if you change it too much then you're gonna have to do a lot of work. So I would say from the beginning, try and pick a topic that you know you're going to enjoy throughout. So long story short, I talked to my EPQ supervisor, shout out to you Mr. Ogletree, and he did advise me to just continue with my title simply because this was January-February time, and in my school we finished EPQ by the Easter holidays, so like April. I ended up changing my title and eventually, and at the very last minute as well, and I did this after talking to my supervisor and my head of EPQ about how A, I wasn't enjoying it, and B, there wasn't much research on the topic that I had picked. And they did end up agreeing, which was great for me, and I did end up changing it because it was very rare to change a title that late into EPQ. Anyways, so after I changed the title, I ended up working so flipping hard. Oh my gosh. And the week I had to submit EPQ for the final time, that week I woke up at 4 a.m. every day, and I would do my EPQ before school and then after school. Anyway, so I submitted my EPQ and I did my presentation, and somehow I got full marks. And considering I wanted to drop out at one point and I also changed my title so late, this still feels unreal to me even to this day. And I remember when I was checking my score, I checked my name a billion times because I was like, there's just no way that I ended up getting full marks after everything that had happened with my EPQ. Anyways, backstory over, let's jump right into the tips. Tip number 1 is to place a big emphasis on research and take some notes while you do so. So first things first, research the question that you've selected well. And I feel like you only truly feel confident enough to write an EPQ if you've done enough reading and research. Now, the way I would do this is by having a Google Docs, and then in a table, I would have 3 columns. So I would have one for the title, one for the link of whatever source I'm using, and one for useful notes and statistics from that link. And this is so that you can easily look back at and see how you can link in the different sources into your actual EPQ when you're writing about it. So I would spend a solid amount of time doing research before writing the EPQ, because if you cannot back up your points with research, then your arguments will be weak, and your arguments need to be strong to access those higher marks. Plus, I feel like it definitely comes across in the presentation as well if you've researched a lot or not. And if you know a lot about your topic, you won't hesitate as much and you'll be more confident in answering even spontaneous questions on the spot. Tip number 2 is to plan your EPQ out your way. You have to remember that at the end of the day, this is your EPQ, not your friends and not your supervisors, but yours. And this is what I like about EPQ. I feel like you're always in control of how you do things, and as long as you document how you do things and how you've changed or adapted your stuff, plus if you reflect on it, then you're set. Now, my supervisor advised me to do something called a Gantt chart to track my progress and meet my deadlines. And if you don't know what a Gantt chart is, it's basically like a spreadsheet with components of your EPQ broken down into smaller chunks, and that's in one column, and then you kind of track your progress by ticking when you've completed that component, and you can also set deadlines for yourself. Anyways, with Gantt charts, I could not keep up with them, and it was just so unhelpful for me. So when I had to reflect on what I was using to manage my time, I talked about how Gantt charts just weren't working for me. And it doesn't look too great if you just say that something wasn't working for you and therefore you have no time management strategy. So I was honest and I said that I used Google Calendar because that's what I used for everything else in my life in terms of lessons or events that I have. Since I ended up reflecting on why I thought Google Calendar was better and I kind of adapted it to my current schedule, it ended up being totally fine for me to do that. Tip number 3 is to use formal language and write like you're an academic professor. Okay, so this does sound like a simple tip, but you won't realize how much of an impact the actual vocab and language of your EPQ has. Also, I would say avoid using words like I or my, such as my EPQ focuses on, because in a research paper, you probably wouldn't be using this. So instead say this report or this review focuses on this. I would also define my abbreviations once and then continue just using the same abbreviations. So for example, if I had to abbreviate and like expand the NHS, I would put National Health Service, and then I would just continue just using the NHS because I've already defined it once. Also, any complicated words or any technical language, I would make sure to define so that the readers understood what I was talking about. Tip number 4 is to use a variety of sources, not just journal articles or just one type of source. So you can use podcasts, books, videos, even you could do primary research. One of the things that they're looking for in your EPQ is a variety of sources. And it's all well and good to just write your EPQ, but just using one type of journal. But I would recommend using articles, news articles, journal articles, podcasts, books, videos, literally anything. As long as you can reference it, it's all good. Also, make sure to reference in the referencing language that they've specified. So for me, this was the Harvard style. One thing that you could use to make your life easier and learn more about how to reference is to use Skillshare, which is also the sponsor of today's video. There's so many categories of classes available on Skillshare, such as productivity, design, entrepreneurship, illustration. Basically, if you name it, they've got it. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. Skillshare can help you take your career, skills, hobbies, passions, or side hustles to the next level. If you're having trouble with referencing, there's so many classes that you can use. Me personally, on Skillshare, I've been doing the one about creative writing and crafting personal essays with impact, and I think that this has helped my writing skills, especially when I'm writing any essays that I have to hand in. So Skillshare can be great to better your writing skills as well. There's so many class topics on Skillshare, and one of these that has recently been released is AI and innovation, which is definitely a very big topic in today's day and age, and especially now it is such a big hot topic with ChatGPT and so many AI models being released. There's also new class topics being released on creative careers and creative inspiration. The first 500 people to use the link in my description will receive 1 month free trial of Skillshare, so get started today. Tip number 5 is to make sure that your arguments are balanced, and if you're arguing, such as for or against, making sure that both of these are included and having many conclusions in your paragraph. So my EPQ supervisor gave me a really good tip, and he said to do a mini conclusion after every section. It's so important that you talk about the good and the bad, and then you evaluate and balance it up in a little paragraph before the next section, which is going to be your mini conclusion. Everything has pros and cons, even if there's definitely more pros than cons or vice versa. Having mini conclusions shows that you're truly processing this information and weighing things up to come up with something by yourself, which is your own opinion on everything. Now, a little bonus tip for your actual conclusion. So try to come to a proper conclusion rather than just saying how there's positives and negatives. I know this can be super hard or even impossible for some questions, but for me, I talked about how I found that COVID-19 wasn't the cause of my impact, but rather the catalyst speeding things up, and the fact that these would have happened anyways without the pandemic as well. My supervisor really liked this conclusion, and when I asked him about why he gave me full marks, he told me that the fact that I got to an actual conclusion like this instantly made me reach the top end of the marks scale. Tip number 6 is just kind of like a collection of presentation tips. So your EPQ presentation can definitely be nerve-wracking. I know I was definitely worried about this because it's all good knowing your topic and presenting, but the fact that your supervisor could ask you questions after was something that concerned me a lot. If I could give myself one piece of advice though, it is that trust me when I say this, you are the expert in that room. This is your topic, so own it. You've spent so much time researching, reading countless articles, and conjuring up a long essay. You will be able to answer questions with some level of confidence. And worst case scenario, if you don't know, address that it's a good question that you will definitely look into. Now, some more basic presentation tips. Firstly, don't put everything on the slides. I would say to bullet point and have a separate script that you go off of, and make your slides look nice with pictures and graphs, but also be consistent with fonts, colors, and just in general be coherent with the transitions as well. Look at your audience, whether that's just your teacher or a whole class. Look at them and project your voice. I put my script on cue cards with 1 card per slide, and my audience was my supervisor and another teacher, which just so happened to be my GCSE German teacher. Another shout out to you, Miss Shepherd. Funny story, my friend wanted to see my cue cards right before my EPQ presentation, so I showed it to her, and then I went into the room where I had to present, and I started talking only to find that all my cue cards were all shuffled up. I was hesitating so much that I thought that at that point I had just completely lost my A star, but honestly, confidence is key, and I tried being confident despite this major problem, which definitely came across as my supervisor and my teacher both said that they didn't really notice me too much when I said that I thought I fumbled or hesitated. Tip number 7 is that reflection is so important. Last but definitely not the least is this tip, and EPQ to me is a journey, and I feel like they assess you on that journey, not just the 5,000 word essay or just the presentation or just your research. It's not even those things, but it's more how you came to create those things, such as your methodology, what you found great, what you didn't find great, your strengths, weaknesses, and so on. I would say best advice is to shape your EPQ to what you like and your way of working, and then talk about how you've adapted it to how you like to do things and how you work efficiently. I would say to go into as much detail as you can and emphasize on your reflection, because a large percentage of the marks do come from how you reflect throughout your EPQ, whether that be at the start when you're still picking your question, or whether that be on your final reflection once you're finally done. Anyways, that was all from me today. Thank you all so much for watching, and I wish you all the best with your EPQ. Good luck, and I'll see you later. Bye!